It is not often, my friends, that we see a superpower get quietly benched in a game that it invented. But that's exactly what's happening right now on the rolling fields of North America. While most people are busy with a thousand louder crisis, a silent agricultural drama is actually unfolding. US corn, the crop that fed empires and fueled entire industries, is actually now getting rejected, literally, by countries that until recently couldn't actually imagine buying from anyone else. Now, when I first started reading the trade bulletins, I thought I'd misread the numbers. US corn turned away at the border. Come on, not just once, but over and over in places where made in America used to mean automatic acceptance. It's really the kind of news that feels like a typo of some sort until you realize the typo is history itself, rewriting its terms in real time. By the way, we got a new mic, so hopefully it's going to be better sound from here on out. Do let me know in the comments whether you like this one better. Now, this is more than a story about corn, my friends. It's more about trust, power, and the way markets quietly rearrange themselves when nobody really is looking. As America scrambles to figure out what went wrong, so many things, Canada is actually signing billion-dollar deals that could reshape the food trade for a generation. If you care about food prices, global influence, or how political choices ripple out into the real world, what happens next should feel very personal. Today, we're actually going to look at three things: why US corn is suddenly being rejected by countries that used to depend on it, how Canada is capitalizing on this moment, almost invisibly, to become a new agricultural heavyweight, and what this says about trust, competition, and the silent power shifts that are shaping the future of global trade. I want to ask you though, if you woke up tomorrow and saw your country's signature export being rejected on the world stage, would you feel betrayed, anxious, or just numb to it all? How much does it matter, do you think, if Canada becomes the world's most trusted supplier while the US slips out of the room? Let me know in the comments below. We always have such a healthy debate, and I'm genuinely curious how this feels to you wherever you're watching from. Just a very quick personal note, my book, Awake: The Practice of Critical Thinking in an Age of Soft Lies, is finally out into the world. This isn't just a guide to thinking more clearly, it's really about finding a sense of clarity and calm in a world that just keeps getting louder. If you ever feel like I do, a bit worn down by all of the noise and knee-jerk opinions, and you want practical ways to think things through properly, especially under pressure, I think you'll find this really valuable. And if you prefer to listen instead of read, I've now added a 24-minute companion podcast that walks you through some of the key ideas in depth. You'll find all of the links below, along with a launch video that explores the bigger themes. There's a special discount for subscribers as well, so if you're curious, just hit that subscribe button and check it out when you have a moment. And one more tiny thing, maybe you didn't know, but I am a computer scientist and I have a PhD in the field. I'm working on a new course all about AI fluency, essentially making sense of the technology that's shaping the next decade. If you're interested in this space and want to help guide what I build next, I would love to have your input. There is a very quick 8-question survey, just a couple of minutes to fill out, and your thoughts will directly influence the content that I build next. The links to everything are below. It would mean so much to hear from you. Anyway, I want you to imagine the moment, basically. A US corn shipment, long, gold, gleaming, perfect, arrives at a port halfway across the world. But instead of the usual green light, it's held, inspected, and then sent back. The official explanation is moisture levels, quality concerns, tariffs, maybe even the wrong paperwork. But behind all these technical reasons lies something deeper, and that is a shift in trust. Now, for decades, American corn wasn't just a product, but a promise, a pillar. Countries built their food security plans around it. Trade deals were signed on the assumption that the US could always deliver reliably, cheaply, and in overwhelming quantity. But over the last year, that promise has actually been broken, and we all have been witness to it. Shipments turned away in ports from Asia to Europe, buyers citing quality issues, rising disputes over tariffs, and a sense that the American system isn't as frictionless as it used to be. In economic terms, this is called counterparty risk, the fear that the person on the other end of a deal won't deliver what you expect when you expect it. In political terms, it's a kind of slow motion humiliation. In human terms, it just feels like waking up to find the ground a little bit less solid than you thought that it was. And to think clearly here, we really have to hold two conflicting ideas at the same time. Yes, some of this is about the raw quality of the corn, harvests affected by weather, supply chain bottlenecks, even US regulatory chaos as agencies shut down or change priorities. But some of it is also about the world learning very suddenly that it has other options. And a good critical thinker doesn't just ask what happened, but who benefits from us reacting a certain way. And in this case, the real beneficiaries are already signing the next round of contracts. But while America is caught off guard, Canada is moving with almost surgical precision. No headlines, no big speeches on this, just a steady rollout of new multi-billion-dollar export deals, buyers in Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, all placing their bets on Canadian corn. Why? Because in a world that's starting to fear volatility, Canada is offering something almost revolutionary: stability. Now let's talk about the specifics. Canada's grain industry has always been a bit quieter, less brash, less showy, maybe even a little bit underestimated. But right now, those trades are assets. Canadian corn is passing inspections, ports are moving shipments efficiently, dispute rates are lower, the grain is consistent, the contracts are clear, and the logistics, especially through the West Coast, are much less prone to the kind of drama that has haunted American exporters recently. Now, to me, this is one of those moments where the boring option becomes the premium one. If you're running a security program in Tokyo, Riyadh, or Berlin, the idea of no surprises is suddenly worth its weight in gold. Canada, by simply being predictable, is actually recasting itself as the new center of gravity for North American grain. It's the kind of shift that happens so quietly you almost miss it, but it has real, durable consequences. Once a contract is signed and a supply chain is established, it's not easily reversed. Trust, once broken, as we all know it, doesn't just heal because you want it to. It takes time, sometimes multiple generations. Now, of course, the shockwaves don't end at the edge of the cornfield. When exports start to fall, the real pain is felt by farmers, men and women whose lives are already squeezed by the rising costs of fuel, fertilizer, and shipping. Many of them voted for the same politicians now presiding over this mess. Some feel betrayed, others just feel abandoned. In Washington, the reaction is reportedly intense, frustrated, sometimes even angry, rightfully so in my opinion. This is the kind of issue that doesn't just hurt this year's profits, it creates political nightmares too, because agriculture in America isn't just an economic sector, it's kind of mythology, it's identity. It's the kind of thing politicians love to pose with, at least until the photo op is over. But the underlying problem isn't just bad luck or bad harvests, it's about the way that trust and stability, two things that should be invisible, suddenly become the most valuable assets in the world. And when you lose them, you lose leverage in every negotiation that follows. If you're a political strategist, the calculation is actually brutal. You can propose bailouts, you can demand loyalty, but you can't actually legislate trust back into existence. When international buyers start to see you as a risk, the damage already is compounded. Leaders, no matter how powerful, end up feeling cornered by forces they barely understand. And this is why the mood in Washington is now tense. Declining exports are a political wound that keeps bleeding no matter how many speeches you give or checks you write. The farmers know it, the buyers know it, and if you look closely enough, the markets know it as well. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but why should anyone outside of the agriculture industry care about this? And that is a very fair question. And the answer is that because in a very real way, these shifts are actually how empires lose influence and how new powers quietly take their place. If the US keeps missing out on export contracts, it means less revenue, less global leverage, and over time, a shrinking say in the rules of global trade. If Canada steps in and becomes the world's trusted supplier, it doesn't just get more money, it gets more voice. It becomes the partner other countries want to negotiate with when the next big trade deal comes up. And that reshapes everything from tariffs to shipping routes, from standards to sanctions. It also means that the next time a global crisis hits, climate, war, or supply chains collapse, the countries with the most reliable trade partners will weather those storms best. And for ordinary people, this tracks down in two ways, basically. If US farmers start cutting production because demand has fallen, Prices at home may rise, first slowly, then sharply. If Canada can keep up with this new demand, it could actually stabilize prices worldwide, but that is still a big if in my opinion. And if both countries start to struggle, food prices everywhere could climb, punishing the most vulnerable people first. To think clearly about this, we have to look past the headlines and ask who gets safer and who gets squeezed when these invisible supply lines start to move. By the way, if you're enjoying this, I'd love it if you subscribe. The House of L is a community of thoughtful, curious people who know that understanding the world is its own kind of power, and you're always very welcome here. Now, one thing that I keep coming back to is this. In global trade, trust is a currency that cannot be printed. It's built up slowly over many years, then lost suddenly in a moment of doubt or crisis. For America, the current crisis is a warning shot. It's not just about corn. It's about what happens when the world discovers that it has options, when buyers realize that they don't have to put up with uncertainty, bureaucracy, or shifting rules, when stability becomes more valuable than price. For Canada, this is an unexpected invitation to build a different kind of power. Not flashy, not loud, but steady. Canada's challenge now, in my opinion, is to maintain the quality and transparency that earned these new contracts, even as damage surges. Because with every deal, the stakes get higher, the spotlight gets brighter. For everyone else, though, the lesson is simple but harsh. Once you lose trust, it takes years to get it back. And in the meantime, the world just moves on, right? It's a strange thing to watch a story like this unfold, not as a headline, but as a slow tectonic shift beneath us. If you told me even a year ago that US corn would be turned away while Canada quietly became the new standard bearer, I might have laughed. But history is so full of moments like this, moments when something breaks invisibly and the old rules stop working. If you answered the question earlier about what it would feel like to watch your country's export get rejected, I think you're probably feeling a mix of anxiety and perhaps resignation, maybe even a little hope if you're Canadian, or quiet anger if you're American. But whatever you feel, I hope that you see that these stories are more than economics. They're about how the world decides what matters and whom to trust. And to me, this whole episode is a lesson in humility and a reminder that in the end, the most valuable things are the ones that we can't really see on a balance sheet. Trust, reliability, kindness, the power of being counted on. Before you go, if you want to see how these same dynamics play out in other sectors, I'd really recommend checking out my videos on lumber and water. Each is a different story, but the theme is the same. The world is changing, but with consequences that will echo for years. In an age of soft lies, staying awake to these shifts is actually its own kind of self-respect. If this kind of thinking resonates with you, if you want to understand how to navigate the noise, the hype, and the complexity of our current moment, I think you'd really enjoy my book. It's called Awake, the Practice of Critical Thinking in an Age of Soft Lies, and it's written for people who want to stay grounded, think clearly, and live in reality, even when the world makes that feel a little bit impossible. I've also included a 24-minute podcast episode where we unpack some of these ideas behind Awake in a more relaxed, conversational way. Perfect if you prefer to listen while walking, driving, or just taking a bit of a break from screens. You'll find the links down to everything below. I'd love to know what you think of it. Thank you so much for being here, for your curiosity, and for holding on to the kind of clear thinking that in the end is the rarest mineral of all. If you like the conversation, consider subscribing for more, and don't forget to check out these other videos that I've linked here as a natural next step for a deeper dive. Until next time, stay awake and take care.